The Galactic Combat League was the most dangerous and prestigious tournament in the known universe. Warriors from countless species gathered to prove their strength, their skills, and their dominance over all others. It was not just a contest, it was a declaration of superiority, a battle to determine the deadliest fighters in the cosmos. The arenas were filled with spectators from all over the galaxy, eager to witness the spectacle of blood, broken bones, and ultimate victory. Among the competitors stood towering reptilian creatures with scales harder than steel, cybernetic warriors with advanced weaponry fused into their bodies, and telekinetic beings who could crush their opponents without lifting a finger. And yet, in the midst of all these monstrous warriors, a handful of humans had entered the tournament. The other species found it amusing at first. Humans were smaller, weaker, and lacked the natural weapons or abilities possessed by their competitors. Many believed they would be eliminated in the first round, humiliated by superior fighters. But as the first battles began, the laughter turned into stunned silence. Elias Voss, a human soldier, faced off against an Orcs brute nearly 3 times his size. The creature's skin was like living armor, its muscles packed with enough strength to crush a tank. The fight should have been over in seconds. Yet, as the Orcs charged forward, Voss didn't run. He dodged at the last second, using the creature's momentum against it. Every strike the brute threw, Voss avoided with expert precision, landing precise counterattacks that targeted weak points no one else had even noticed. It wasn't about brute strength, it was about strategy, endurance, and adaptability. The fight dragged on longer than any expected, and to the disbelief of the audience, Voss emerged victorious. His opponent lay unconscious on the ground, defeated by what was supposed to be a lesser species. Meanwhile, Sergeant Daria Khan faced off against a HFY warrior, a species known for its unparalleled speed and reflexes. The HFY moved like a blur, attacking from every direction, but Khan didn't falter. She had trained for this. She didn't need to be faster, she just needed to be smarter. She anticipated every move, analyzing patterns and weaknesses, countering at just the right moments. The battle became a test of endurance, and in the end, the HFY collapsed, exhausted. Khan stood victorious, barely winded. The audience, which had expected an easy win for the HFY, watched in stunned disbelief. Something was different about humans. They didn't just fight, they endured. They adapted. And most importantly, they refused to quit. As the tournament continued, the human fighters became the talk of the galaxy. How could a species without natural weapons, without enhanced strength or speed, stand against the universe's greatest warriors? Scientists studied their biology, searching for an answer. Their muscles, while strong, were not the most powerful. Their bones, while durable, were not the hardest. But their endurance was unmatched. Their minds were wired for strategy, their bodies for survival. They could withstand pain and keep going when others would have fallen. They had something no other species truly understood: an unbreakable will. As the final rounds approached, the last human competitor, Elias Voss, found himself facing the reigning champion Exaroth, the Eternal. Exaroth had held the title for over 1,000 years. He had never been defeated. His body was enhanced beyond natural limits, his combat experience spanning centuries. He had fought and destroyed warriors far stronger than any human. To the rest of the galaxy, the outcome was already decided. Voss was skilled, but he was still just a human. The fight would be over in moments. But as the battle began, something incredible happened. Voss refused to fall. Exaroth struck with bone-crushing force, yet Voss kept standing. Every attack that should have ended the fight only fueled the human's determination. He countered, adapted, fought with a level of strategy and endurance that no one had ever seen before. The battle stretched on for hours, a feat unheard of in the tournament's history. Exaroth, for the first time in 1,000 years, was pushed to his limits. And then, in one final moment of desperation and brilliance, Voss found his opening. A single, precise strike landed, and Exaroth, the undefeated champion, fell. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, the arena erupted. Humanity had done the impossible. The galaxy had underestimated them, But now, there was no denying the truth. The greatest fighters in the universe did not come from the strongest species. They did not come from the fastest or the most powerful. They came from Earth. Humanity's unexpected success in the tournament had puzzled scientists, warriors, and scholars alike. It wasn't just that the humans were winning, it was how they were winning. Their opponents were stronger, faster, and, in many cases, biologically superior, yet time and time again, the human fighters emerged victorious. No one could understand it. The arena's medical teams analyzed their physiology, but there was nothing extraordinary about their muscles, nothing in their bones that could explain their endurance, nothing that should have made them so difficult to defeat. Yet, here they were, surviving battles that should have been impossible and outlasting warriors who were genetically engineered for combat. The mystery of human strength had begun to spread across the galaxy, and everyone wanted to know the answer. Elias Voss had become the center of attention after his battle against an Orcs brute twice his size. The reptilian creature had the ability to crush its opponents with a single blow, yet Voss had stood his ground, dodging attacks with a level of precision that seemed almost unnatural. His movements were not based on instinct, but on experience and calculation. Every step he took, every counter he launched, was planned. The battle had lasted far longer than anyone had anticipated, and when the Orcs finally fell, exhausted and broken, the entire arena had gone silent. How could a species so physically weak defeat such a monstrous foe? The question hung in the air, and soon, experts across the galaxy were running simulations, dissecting footage, and conducting studies in an attempt to uncover the truth. But what they found was something even more perplexing than they had imagined. The human body, though not the strongest, was designed for endurance. Their muscles did not rely on explosive power, but on sustained effort. While most species burned through their energy reserves quickly, humans kept going. Their biology allowed them to push beyond the limits of pain and exhaustion in ways no other species could. And then there was their mental resilience. In a battle between El Exilari warrior and Sergeant Daria Khan, the mystery deepened even further. The Exilari were known for their telepathic abilities, capable of overwhelming an opponent's mind and rendering them helpless. But when the fight began, something unexpected happened. Khan resisted. The Exilari launched wave after wave of psychic attacks, but Khan remained standing, gritting her teeth and pushing forward. The crowd watched in disbelief as she closed the distance, her mind unbroken, and with a final devastating strike, she defeated the Exilari. No one had ever resisted such an attack before. Scientists scrambled to understand it. Was it some hidden genetic trait? A biological advantage that had gone unnoticed? The truth, as it turned out, was far more terrifying. Humans were not the strongest, the fastest, or the most advanced. But they had one thing that no other species truly possessed: a refusal to surrender. Their ability to endure pain, adapt to impossible situations, and keep fighting even when all logic dictated that they should have lost was something that no scientist could explain with mere biology. It was not in their genes, it was in their very nature. Across the galaxy, stories began to surface about human soldiers who had survived wounds that should have been fatal, explorers who had endured conditions that would have killed any other species, and warriors who had pushed themselves beyond the brink of exhaustion simply because they refused to give up. It was not their strength that made them dangerous. It was their unbreakable will. As the tournament progressed, the other competitors began to fear them. Not because humans were unbeatable, but because they never seemed to understand when they were supposed to lose. In one of the final rounds, Elias Voss faced an opponent who had never been defeated, a cybernetic warlord known as Crix-9. Crix-9 was a machine in every sense of the word. His body was built for combat, enhanced with technology that allowed him to process attacks before they even happened. He had fought for centuries, eliminating every warrior who had stood against him. To him, Voss was nothing more than an insect, an organic being who could not possibly match the efficiency of a machine. But as the fight began, something strange happened. Voss was not faster. He was not stronger. But he was relentless. Every time Crix-9 struck him down, he got back up. Every time Crix-9 calculated an ending, Voss defied it. The machine could not comprehend it. Logically, the human should have collapsed. He should have been unable to continue. Yet, there he was, standing, breathing, refusing to accept defeat. Crix-9, for the first time in his existence, hesitated. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day. Strength was not just about muscle. Speed was not just about reflexes. True power lay in the will to keep fighting, in the ability to endure, in the refusal to surrender. The mystery of human strength was no longer a question of biology or genetics. It was something far more terrifying, something that could not be measured, predicted, or countered. It was the very thing that made them unstoppable. And as the tournament neared its final battle, every species watching understood one undeniable truth. Humanity was the greatest warrior race the universe had ever seen. The Galactic Dominion had fought countless wars, conquered entire civilizations, and broken the spirits of even the strongest warriors in the universe. But now, for the first time in its long history, it had encountered an enemy it could not defeat. Humanity was a relatively new species in the galactic community, one that had not yet established itself as a major power. The Dominion had expected them to surrender, as so many others had before them. When their fleets arrived in human space, they believed it would be a simple campaign, a show of force, a few decisive battles, and the inevitable collapse of human resistance. But things did not go as planned. The humans did not surrender. They did not run. They fought with a determination that defied all logic, as if defeat was an impossibility they refused to accept. And the longer the war dragged on, the more the Dominion realized they'd made a terrible mistake. From the very first battle, humanity proved itself to be different. When the Dominion bombarded the human colony of Epsilon Prime, reducing cities to rubble, the survivors did not break. They regrouped. They fought back. Without advanced technology, without powerful warships, they turned the ruins of their world into a battlefield, ambushing Dominion forces at every turn. They did not rely on superior firepower or overwhelming numbers. They relied on strategy, endurance, and sheer willpower. The Dominion had never encountered an enemy like this before. Other species, when faced with such devastation, would have surrendered. But not the humans. Every attempt to pacify them only made them fight harder. The Dominion's commanders could not understand it. Why did they not accept their fate? Why did they keep going when all logic dictated that they should fall? As the war continued, human soldiers became legends across the galaxy. The Dominion's warlords whispered stories of battles where humans stood their ground long after their allies had fallen, where they fought with injuries that should have left them unable to move, where they refused to stop even when the odds were hopeless. On the battlefield, a single human squad could hold a position against an entire army, not because they were the strongest, but because they were the most relentless. When one soldier fell, another took their place. When they were outgunned, they adapted. When they were outnumbered, they used the terrain to their advantage. They fought as if they had nothing to lose, as if they would rather die than let their enemy claim victory. And the most terrifying thing of all was that they never gave up. One of the most famous battles of the war took place on the frozen world of Varkos 7. A Dominion force of over 10,000 troops descended upon a human outpost, expecting an easy victory. The humans defending the outpost numbered fewer than 100. The Dominion gave them a chance to surrender. They refused. The battle lasted for 3 days. The humans, outgunned and outnumbered, used every resource they had, every ounce of their strength, to hold the line. They had no reinforcements coming, no hope of escape, yet they fought as if victory was still within their grasp. When the Dominion finally broke through, they expected to find the last surviving humans cowering in fear. Instead, they found them still fighting, still refusing to fall. It took the complete annihilation of the outpost to put an end to the resistance, and even then, the Dominion forces did not feel like victors. They had won the battle, but they had lost something far greater: the belief that humans could be broken. As the war dragged on, the Dominion's confidence began to waver. Their warlords had once believed in their invincibility, but now they questioned whether they had the strength to outlast humanity. Every time they crushed one human world, another would rise up. Every time they claimed victory, they would learn of another battle where humans had somehow defied the odds. The war was no longer about territory or conquest. It had become a test of endurance, a question of who would break first. And as the Dominion's forces grew weary, as their leaders began to doubt, humanity remained unshaken. They had suffered immense losses. They had seen their worlds burn, but they still fought. Their spirit remained unbroken. The turning point came when the Dominion launched a final assault on Earth itself. They believed that if they could break humanity's homeworld, they could finally end the war. Their fleets surrounded the planet, their troops landed in overwhelming numbers, and the battle began. But Earth was not like any other world they had conquered. It was humanity's last stand, and they fought with a fury that no Dominion soldier had ever witnessed before. Civilians took up arms alongside soldiers. Cities became fortresses. Every street, every building, every piece of rubble became a battlefield. The Dominion's forces, though superior in strength and numbers, found themselves overwhelmed not by firepower, but by sheer determination. The humans refused to lose. They fought in the ruins, in the shadows, in the very depths of the planet itself. The Dominion's warlords watched in horror as their invincible armies were torn apart, not by advanced weaponry, but by an enemy that simply refused to be defeated. In the end, the Dominion withdrew. Their fleets retreated. Their warlords, once so confident, had been humbled. They had never encountered an enemy like humanity before, and they knew they never would again. The war was over, not because humanity had superior weapons, not because they had outnumbered their foes, but because they had proven something the Dominion had failed to understand. Strength was not just about power. Victory was not just about strategy. True strength, true victory, came from the spirit of those who refused to surrender. And humanity's spirit was, and always would be, unbeatable. The Galactic Combat League had existed for thousands of years, an arena where the strongest warriors from every known species competed for glory. Each cycle, a new supreme champion was crowned, a being whose strength and skill surpassed all others. For over a century, that title had belonged to Exal-Zorath, a towering behemoth from the warlike Zartok race. No challenger had ever come close to defeating him. His name alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of even the most fearless fighters. The League's grand tournament had become a formality. Exal-Zorath would enter, he would dominate, and he would leave undefeated. Until now. When the newest cycle of the tournament began, an unexpected name appeared on the list of challengers. A human. The other contestants scoffed at the very idea. Humans were not known for their physical power. Compared to the monstrous champions of the arena, they were smaller, weaker, and unremarkable. Yet, the human stood unfazed as the tournament commenced. His name was Adrian Cole, a former soldier from Earth. He was not the biggest competitor, nor the strongest. But from the very first match, it became clear that he was different. His opponents underestimated him, expecting an easy victory. They learned quickly that was a mistake. Adrian did not win with brute force. He won with precision, endurance, and a fighting spirit that never wavered. He studied his enemies, adapted to their movements, and struck with calculated efficiency. One by one, the most fearsome warriors fell before him. The audience, who had laughed at the idea of a human challenger, now watched in stunned silence. As Adrian progressed through the tournament, whispers spread across the galaxy. Could this human truly challenge Exal-Zorath? The supreme champion himself took notice. From his private viewing chamber, Exal-Zorath observed each of Adrian's fights with growing interest. He saw something in the human that intrigued him, not strength, but resilience. He had faced thousands of warriors who relied on their raw power to win. But Adrian was different. He endured. He refused to break, no matter how fearsome his opponent. And now, against all odds, the human had fought his way to the final round. The arena was filled with anticipation. Billions across the galaxy tuned in. The supreme champion would finally face a worthy challenger. The moment Adrian stepped into the arena, he felt the weight of every eye upon him. Exal-Zorath entered soon after, his massive frame casting a shadow over the battlefield. He was nearly 3 times Adrian's size, his muscles like slabs of stone, his claws capable of tearing through steel. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena, declaring the final match. Then, the battle began. Zalzorath struck first, moving with. The fight raged on. Adrian was fast, but Zalzorath was relentless. Every blow from the Supreme Champion shook the arena. Adrian dodged, blocked, and countered, but with each passing moment, the toll on his body grew. The audience watched in awe. Any other warrior would have fallen by now. But Adrian kept going. He refused to give in. His movements, once precise, were now fueled by sheer determination. Zalzorath struck him hard, sending him sprawling across the arena floor. The crowd gasped. But Adrian pushed himself back up. His vision blurred, his muscles screamed in protest, but he would not surrender. Zalzorath narrowed his eyes. He had broken countless warriors before. He had seen the fear in their eyes, watched as their spirits shattered under his strength. But this human refused to break. For the first time in a century, the Supreme Champion felt something unfamiliar doubt. "Why do you persist?" he asked, his voice no longer mocking. "You cannot win. You must know this." Adrian wiped the blood from his face and smiled. Because giving up isn't an option. With a sudden burst of speed, Adrian launched himself forward. He no longer aimed to overpower Zalzorath. Instead, he used his own strength against him. He dodged at the last second, letting the Supreme Champion's momentum work against him. He struck at weak points, targeting nerves and pressure points that others had ignored. Zalzorath staggered. It was small, almost imperceptible, but the audience saw it. The impossible had happened. Zalzorath, the undefeated, had faltered. The battle continued, neither fighter willing to fall. Minutes stretched into eternity. Then, Adrian saw his opportunity. With every ounce of strength left in his body, he delivered a final blow, one aimed not at Zalzorath's body, but at his pride. He stood tall, despite the pain, refusing to fall. And in that moment, Zalzorath understood. Victory was not about strength alone. It was about will. And Adrian's will was unbreakable. Silence filled the arena. Then, Zalzorath did something no one had ever seen before. He stepped back. He raised a clawed hand, and, in a deep, rumbling voice, he said, "I yield." The audience erupted. The impossible had happened. A human, the species so many had underestimated, had defeated the Supreme Champion. Adrian stood there, breathing heavily, as Zalzorath approached him. The towering warrior extended a hand. "You have earned my respect, human. You are more than a warrior. You are a symbol of what cannot be broken." And with that, Adrian Cole became the new Supreme Champion. Not because he was the strongest, but because he had proven that even against impossible odds, the human spirit would always prevail. The galaxy had never paid much attention to Earth. It was a small, unremarkable planet on the edge of known space, home to a species that lacked advanced technology and interstellar influence. To the larger empires, humanity was insignificant. That perception changed the day Ethan Voss stepped into the arena of the Galactic Proving Grounds, the most brutal competition in the universe. The tournament was designed to test the greatest warriors of every species, a place where only the strongest survive. No human had ever dared to enter. The thought alone was laughable to the seasoned warriors who had spent centuries perfecting their combat techniques. But Ethan was not here to impress them, he was here to win. From the moment he entered the first round, the audience dismissed him as a weakling. His opponent, a towering reptilian from the Drakthor Dominion, smirked as he faced the human. The fight began, and the Drakthor lunged, expecting an easy kill. But Ethan was faster than anyone had expected. He dodged the attack with precision, countering with a series of strikes aimed at pressure points. The Drakthor stumbled, his massive frame faltering under Ethan's relentless assault. Moments later, the impossible happened. The Drakthor warrior collapsed. The audience sat in stunned silence. The human had won. Word of Ethan's victory spread like wildfire. Some called it luck. Others believed it was a fluke. But as the tournament progressed, he continued to defy expectations. Each opponent he faced was stronger, more skilled, and deadlier than the last. Yet Ethan adapted. He studied their movements, learned their weaknesses, and exploited their flaws. Unlike the other fighters, he did not rely on brute strength alone. He used strategy, endurance, and a level of determination that was unheard of in the arena. His body endured pain that would have broken others. He fought with a resilience that left even the most hardened warriors in awe. As the final rounds approached, the crowds no longer laughed. They no longer saw Ethan as an underdog. They saw him as a threat. The reigning champion of the tournament, a warlord from the Kryvax Empire named Thalzir, took special interest in the human. Thalzir was a legend in his own right, undefeated for over a century, feared across the galaxy for his brutal combat style. When he saw Ethan fight, he recognized something in the human that he had never seen before. It was not just skill, it was willpower. The final match arrived. Billions watched as Ethan entered the arena, standing across from Thalzir. The Kryvax warlord was more than twice his size, covered in armored scales that no blade could pierce. The announcer's voice echoed through the stadium, and the fight began. Thalzir attacked without hesitation, his strikes like thunder, shaking the ground beneath them. Ethan dodged, countered, and moved with an agility that seemed almost impossible. But Thalzir was different from the others. He was relentless. His attacks kept coming, faster and harder, each blow threatening to end the fight in an instant. Ethan felt pain shoot through his body as one of Thalzir's strikes connected, sending him crashing into the ground. The audience held their breath. No one had ever survived a direct hit from the warlord. But Ethan, bloodied and bruised, forced himself back to his feet. He refused to stay down. He refused to lose. The fight continued, and despite his injuries, Ethan kept going. He analyzed Thalzir's movements, waiting for an opening. Then, he saw a slight hesitation in the warlord's stance. It was small, almost imperceptible, but Ethan had spent his life mastering the art of combat. He seized the moment. With a final burst of energy, he launched forward, striking with everything he had. His fists, his elbows, his knees, every part of him became a weapon. The force of his attack caught Thalzir off guard. For the first time in 100 years, the warlord staggered. The arena fell silent. Thalzir stood motionless. Then, slowly, he dropped to one knee. It was not just a loss, it was a surrender. The undefeated champion had been defeated. The crowd erupted in a mix of shock and admiration. Ethan stood there, breathing heavily, his body pushed beyond its limits. He had done the impossible. A human, from a species once considered weak, had conquered the greatest tournament in the galaxy. Thalzir rose to his feet and did something no one expected. He extended his hand. "You are no ordinary warrior, human. You are a legend." And so, on that day, Ethan Voss became more than just a fighter. He became a symbol. A legend was born, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.